Data from the Goonies.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a powerhouse actor. I was not,
Yeah.
when I saw him, I was like, oh, look, it's Data from Goonies. Oh, he got work. Fantastic. That's what first thought. And then I'm like, holy crap, he's really good.
Yeah.
And
don't underestimate Data.
No, dude, like.
This episode is brought to you by Indie Film Hustle Academy, where filmmakers and screenwriters go to learn from top Hollywood industry professionals. Learn more at ifhacademy.com.
I'd like to welcome to the show the Daniels, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. How you doing, guys?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Pretty good. Hello.
Hey, good, guys. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I am a fan of what you guys do. You guys are insane, and I love that about you. It's such a wonderful thing to see the work that you guys have been doing over the years. That's the only word I can use is insane, but in the most wonderful way humanly possible. So when you guys got into the feature game, I was so excited to see like Swiss Army Man. Miranda Bailey was just on the show a few weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
So, and she was like telling me the whole story about Swiss Army Man. I'm like, how the hell? How is that? How did that get financed? What happened? And she's like, it's her fault. Exactly. She told me the whole story, and it was fascinating. But before we go down that road, how did you and why did you guys want to get into this insanity that is the film industry?
I just did whatever my brother did as a kid. So like he did like math team, so I did math team, and then like he and his friends started making movies, and so I started making movies with my friends in high school. But that's a very different thing than the industry, and it's interesting. Like I did a lot of theater as a kid, and then the older I got, the more I was like, oh, I don't actually want to be an actor. That industry seems not for me, and the film industry is, there's a lot of warts, there's a lot of problems and things, but like you get to like, especially as a writer and director, on your own terms, collaborate with friends and tell stories, it was the funnest thing I'd ever done. I just got hooked, and we're so lucky that our careers, we still get to do it in a way that's pretty similar, to like the high school college version of making movies with your friends.
Oh, there's no question.
Yeah. For me, I'm like in the hero's journey, they talk about the refusal to the call. You run away from the thing, and I feel like I've been running away from
your biopics can be more interesting than mine.
I guess so, yeah. Because I get because
you refuse the call.
Exactly, the setup is so much better. But I grew up really disempowered for some reason, and I don't know where it comes from. Like I did not believe in myself. I didn't believe that I had worth, and yet people would tell me like, oh, you're pretty good at this, or you're pretty good at that. And I wouldn't believe it. And I just kind of run away from all of it, especially coming from my mother. My mother would be like, you're a good storyteller. Why don't you write some more? And I was like, no, Mom, you don't, that's stupid. That's a waste of time. That's not going to help me get into college. I was a very nervous person. I had a lot of anxiety. And so everything was about what was the most practical route forward. And I was miserable because of it, because I wasn't how my brain, wasn't built for practical. It was built for, wild, insane storytelling. And apparently my mom, when I was younger, met a Christian, like a fundamentalist Christian fortune teller, for lack of a better word. And she saw me, apparently, this soothsayer. And
see, great biopic.
Exactly. It's so wild.
It's just so fascinating. It's just fascinating.
No fair.
But she said to my mom, your son, I was in like third grade. And she's like, your son is going to be a great storyteller one day, maybe even a filmmaker, and he's going to spread the word of God. And my mom never told me this story until much later, until like I'm as an adult. She's told me now, but now I understand why she was pushing me to go to film school, which is so funny. Anyone who is a Asian American kid who is the kid of like the son or daughter of immigrants will understand how profoundly strange that is to have a Chinese mother say, son, don't go to business school. Like
go to film
school. And so I did what all children do, and I ignored my mom and I went to business school. So again, I was like, fuck that, I don't want to do that. Sorry, I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this.
It's fine.
Fart that.
I don't want to go. I don't want to risk my life. I don't want to be a miserable, starving artist. I'm going to go to business school, and I was miserable. I hated every minute of that experience, and I was like, well, maybe I should go to film school. Maybe I should try this out. And it's even when I went to film school, I didn't want to be a director because I looked around and I was like, I'm not a director. I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to command 100 people in a crew. And so I was like, I'm going to become an animator. I'm going to learn how to animate and just make things on my computer by myself. And that's where I met this guy. And the experience of meeting Daniel Scheinert has been one in which every single time I feel like I don't belong in this industry, kind of like going back to your question of like, how do we get into this crazy industry? Anytime either of us felt like we didn't belong, or the way that we worked and processed our arts felt incongruous with how the industry worked, Scheinert, being such a contrarian, would be like, so what? Let's do it anyways. And I think it was one of the biggest, most satisfying lessons I've learned over and over again with every project is like, oh, the way things aren't exactly how they have to be, and in fact we can find better ways to suit ourselves. And I think if more film students learn that, like that they can build a film process suited to their specific style, just like every painter has a different process, every poet has a different process. Like growing up, you learned about all the auteurs in film school, and I didn't see myself in any of their work, and so it was a series of accidents, and we have slowly built a career around this project of trying to figure out how can we be ambitious filmmakers who make great work that we're proud of while still staying grounded and human and not be assholes. I think that's one of the things that for some reason our industry has really built up, is this idea that like in order to make great stuff you have to be a really mean person.
But in order to have a good biopic, I think we might have to turn me into the villain for the second half of our careers, and I'll be like the manager of Brian Wilson.
That sounds good.
From Love and Mercy, I'll be Paul Giamatti, like taking advantage of you. You're like, you should take more drugs, more ADHD drugs, Dan.
That helps you. That helps with your creative process. Absolutely.
Right.
No, it would be the equivalent of my Cuban parents going, "Go be a filmmaker." Yeah, go ahead. Because when I told my parents I wanted to be a filmmaker, my mom's like, "Okay, let's do it." And my dad's like, "What do you what?"
Yeah.
What is that? I'm like, I could be a PA. I can make $100 a day. That was my pitch to him to be in the film
love
industry.
It's so practical.
Yeah.
It's
wow.
You know how to appeal to an immigrant father. I can make $100 a day, Dad. Come on.
$100 cash a day. That was as far as my vision of my career had gone from that point.
I love it.
Yeah.
Now you guys obviously got started with shorts and then made your bones in music videos. By the way, some of the most interesting music videos of the last decade have been directed by you guys. And I'm not just smoking
Smoking our butt. Is that the phrase?
I'm not smoking your butt, blowing smoke up your butts. Because I came up in the 90s with Fincher and Romanek and all these amazing film. So I love music videos, especially in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s is when the form really took they took it to other places. So when I saw what you Turn Down the What, I was just like, what is this? This is, just the clocking of the gun cocking as she sits on his face is a level of brilliance I have not seen very often in music videos. So thank you, sirs.
Thank you. That was our creative peak.
Yeah, that sound effect was
that sound effect.
Sit on your butt, his face.
It was just such a beautiful thing. It's such a small thing, and only everybody else might have seen other things, but when I saw that, I'm like, they're filmmakers.
And that is, to our audience, that's where the metaphor or the term "smoking your ass" came from.
Right.
Yeah. Smoking the butt.
That was the first time.
Yeah.
So you guys did some amazing work in music videos. What lessons did you bring from your music videos experiences into the feature world, which are obviously two different? Though I could argue to say that Swiss Army Man and your current film both are just really long music videos in the sense of the visuals are just insane.
And the fact that there's music nonstop.
We rely on music a lot in our work.
Yeah. So we learned a ton. Obviously, some some incredible music video directors do kind of like non-narrative aesthetic tone poems, and we always did like short films. We always like tricked a band into paying for our short films, you know, like they were very narratively driven. So we kind of were honing our voice as writers while doing music videos, and that made the transition a little like more organic, I guess, you know, because we were like, oh, we're you know, a lot of videos have like a beginning, middle, and end. Turn Down for What doesn't have much character development, but you know, there's a little bit of a linear story.
Argue,
you know,
I'd argue to say there's a lot of character development.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Don't you see the world
Right.
bends around the protagonist? The protagonist is the constant, and the world is what's
If you don't
developing.
turn down, everyone else turns up.
Exactly. But to piggyback on what he's saying, like we didn't think of ourselves as writers. Like I didn't even think of myself as a director at the time we first got hired for the first,
Or a dancer.
Yeah, there's so many things that we did not consider.
He's the star
ourselves
of
to be.
Turn Down for What? That's him.
Yes,
Yeah.
in case you didn't know.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Oh, thank you. But so we treated every project as film school in some ways, to be like, hey, we've never worked with a DP before. What's that like? Let's bring a DP on for this one. Or you know, what is a production design team supposed to be, and what's that relationship supposed to be like? Let's bring on a production designer. And every project we just built our family out and started adding more and more people and learning new skills. You know, we were like, I've always wanted to play with motion control camera rigs, and so we did that for a Battles music video. We've always wanted to do.
We started out
stunts.
doing a lot more like visual effects,
Yeah.
and then we slowly learned more and more practical effects gags.
Yeah.
Like, be like, oh, that's so much more fun when you can actually like blow up an air mortar or have a breakaway prop.
Right. And then like we wanted to play more with stunts and just see what that was like. So we did a Foster People video about car chase, and we learned that we hate shooting car chases, you know. And so every project was like a selfish way for us to learn something new. And then by the time we were ready to do features, like we had accrued a team with a very specific skill sets that, you know, really supported our process, and we felt like we were ready. The only thing that was really hard, I'd say the hardest part of the transition was the time frames of music videos versus features. You know, music videos, you prep, pitch, write, shoot, edit, and release within a month. With features, it takes you a year just to write like the first draft sometimes. And that was a real struggle to like slow down and step back and say no to everything, and basically turn off the faucet that we had of work coming in, because we were at the peak of our music video careers, and we had to step away from that and say, you know what, we've always wanted to be filmmakers who did features and narrative, and that was probably the hardest part. And I see a lot of contemporaries who are in the music video industry who never did that, never had the I don't want to say discipline or self-control. It's more just we had each other to keep each other accountable. So we were the ones who were able to say, hey, should we pull back? And we had someone who basically was there to keep us accountable and not get tempted to get pulled back into the whirlwind that is music video.
And we got lucky. You know, we know friends that do turn off the faucet and write a screenplay and can't get it made.
Yes, it's hard. It's hard
a weird
out there.
World, but we learned a lot. We still use all the same tricks and work with all the same crew.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing is once you find people that you can work with, you hold on to them for dear life, because it's there's a comfort level there. You could just look at them and they know exactly what you want, or they know what you want before you know what you want. So like you walk in and you're like, perfect. This is exactly the aesthetic I want.
Yeah. But now that we're famous,
hot dog fingers.
Now we're gonna like quit working with them. All those losers.
Obviously,
right? Yeah,
obviously, that's what you do. You leave them alone, and you get high Oscar winners, just high Oscar winners all around.
Yes, this is the industry way. Yes,
yes, exactly. Now, so you guys have done some insane projects. What is your writing process like? Were you two working together? Because I write by alone. I've never written with somebody else. So how do you guys go back and forth with the writing process?
Yeah,
that was a real learning. That was a lot of growing pains in that like leap from music videos to screenwriting, because neither of us thought of ourselves as writers. But when you're a music video director, you're constantly having to write new ideas. And so our process for music videos was actually pretty organically formed from the fact that we just had to be constantly pitching. Like we would put out 2 or 3 pitches a week to different songs, and we'd get rejected 90% of the time. But that really exercised a part of our collective muscles, where we were basically throwing ideas back and forth until someone laughed or someone gasped or someone emoted, and then we're like, okay, what is that? Let's latch onto that. And then we would start to throw ideas back and forth until they became these snowballs that kind of kept attaching more and more conceptual ideas, narrative ideas, visual ideas, and like we would start putting on different visual references that we'd pull up from YouTube or Vimeo, and we would never write anything down. It would all just be in our heads and just be ping-ponging back and forth for a couple weeks, without writing anything down, just seeing what stuck. And then finally, when it came time to pitch, we just write it all down and send it out, which is great for music videos because you have to have that speed. Once we transitioned to features, that became really hard to do, to ping-pong the feature back and forth without writing it down, without, so what is our process now? I feel like it keeps changing.
I feel like it changes on every project, and that might be the lesson, is that like it's almost like a weird therapy exercise. And if you do the exact same thing each time, you're not going to like make discoveries. You're just going to like kind of figure out a pattern of how to make a similar but not as good thing, because it's not as like authentic and heartfelt. But we still bounce ideas off each other a lot. We spend a lot of time apart, and we're each other's biggest fan and also like biggest like critic, because we've built kind of a common vocabulary and a trust of each other's thoughts. So it's a lot of like time apart and coming back and being like, I have this thought, it really resonates with me. I write very poorly by myself, and so like sometimes I'm hungry to be like, Dan, hang out with me. I want to throw ideas out. But sometimes
Daniel Scheinert comes from like an improv background, so everything about that world is about interactions and
collaborative. And I'm sort of an extrovert who feeds off other people's energy. And then Kwan is like introvert extrovert, and so like every once in a while he just disappears and is like, nope, leave me alone. I'm writing, and he'll come back with like really great stuff. But sometimes the great stuff is 5 times longer than we agreed it was going to be, and then we're back to the drawing board of like, how do we keep it all? Which parts do we keep? And then it's an editing process, and it's just a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. So with our first draft for Everything Everywhere, we spent a long time outlining together, throwing things back and forth the ways that we have been talking about. And then Scheinert went off to do his other movie, Death of Dick Long,
which is not a porn.
Yeah, not a porn. It's respectable,
great name
dance movie.
Porn,
exactly. It's misleading. I understand.
But I wrote the first draft while he was gone shooting that movie, and it came back and it was like 240 pages. So I'm definitely. I have ADHD. I realized while writing this movie, and I think because of that, I'm definitely very generative. I'm just constantly writing. I have notebooks that are always open. I have like 5 different. I write stuff on my phone, on my notebook, on my laptop, on my. I just need to be writing constantly on things. Otherwise, my brain will explode. I just need to like let them out, and so. I hand a lot of that over to Scheinert, and then Scheinert just like points at things that are working and points at and like tries to help form it into something that like makes both of us excited. So it's so far it's been
or like scares the producers less.
Right, exactly. That's also true. Like I'm very ambitious, and Scheinert is very practical minded, and so I think the combination of our brains has been very good.
It's so funny when I had Miranda on the show, and everyone listening, you got to listen to Miranda, the producer of Swiss Army Man, the stories about how that movie got made, because I was fascinated. I'm like, how in God's green earth did anybody put money up for this film? Like, in what world does this movie exist? Apparently, this in this universe it exists. In others it might not, but in this universe it exists. And she said like she talked to, I think, somebody in her company, and they're like, we're not going to make this, right? We're not going to make the movie about the farting with the dick and the dead. Are you really? And she's like, no, we're really gonna make you guys got to listen to that interview. It's fantastic. Cool. It's so fantastic. So
I remember that pitch. Yeah.
It was like, how did you come up with the idea? It's such a insane idea. How did you come up with it? And how in God's green earth do you pitch that in a room?
Which one? Swiss Army Man?
Yeah, Swiss Army Man.
Yeah. The idea started we're the same way like all our music videos started. It was kind of like an image or a gag or a little scene that like made us laugh. And it was just the opening scene of a guy. Initially, the idea was like feeding a corpse beans like it's fuel. And then riding its farts off a deserted island to freedom.
But it was like very beautiful and like it was very
amazing.
Yeah.
And
we were like, that would be a funny like
the music
commercial,
that I was
right.
Film.
Yeah, the music I was listening to was Ben Zeitlin, who did Beasts of the Southern Wild. His short film that he did before that was called Glory at Sea. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's fantastic.
It's the best.
Ambitious indie film made with no money, and it was such an aspirational thing for us to watch in college. But the score is incredible, and Ben worked on the score. But I was listening to that score while we were on an airplane, and just imagining the beauty and the catharsis of a man riding off on a farting corpse was like making me laugh. But I will say that like a lot of our stuff, as wild as it is, comes from a very practical place because you mentioned in the 90s the great music videos like Fincher and Romanek and Spike Jonze and Michel Gondry. They had big budgets, $500,000, millions, $10 million, millions. By the time we got into the music video industry, Napster and streaming had decimated the industry, so that we were working with $10,000, most of the time $20,000, whatever. So we got stuck in this really interesting mode of filmmaking, which was very practical and based off of problem solving. So like we happened to be flying to Alabama to visit his family and do sort of a mini writer's retreat for another movie we thought we were going to write. And we were asking ourselves, what resources do we have there? Because we should shoot something while we're there. That'll be fun.
And they live on a lake in Alabama, and their neighbors had a boat. And so we were like, maybe we could do a weird gag with a boat.
And I was like, okay, there's two of us. So, so a short little thing with two people on the water. What could that be? And that's where this idea came from. And I think like a lot of our work is kind of coming from very practical, problem solving. And so that's where it came from. I pitched it to him. And Scheinert was like, that's amazing. We have to make it. And I immediately regretted pitching it to him because I was like, I don't want to make that though. I don't
want to show that to my parents.
Exactly. The person at Miranda's company who said, we're not really going to make that. It's like, oh yeah, that was what I was saying too. It's not, they weren't crazy for thinking that. And then the idea just kept grew. It really was like a cancer in my brain, and both our collective brains. It just kept growing, and more ideas kept latching onto it.
And then it became a long short film about like the amnesia, the amnesia corpse trying to figure out what happened to it and learn about life. And then that short film got bigger and bigger, and we were like, maybe it's a feature. That would be hilarious. Like, and almost as like a joke, we started fleshing out the feature. And then,
well, actually, no, as a joke, we pitched it in a general meeting. We were actually, speaking of industry, so we were getting passed around Hollywood doing general meetings, and we kept pitching our joke ideas because we didn't have any ideas that we thought would appeal to most studio heads or to any producers. And one day we decided to pitch this movie to a producer almost as a joke. And he leaned
he was
forward.
like, do you really want to make that?
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah. And he's like, why haven't you written it? And we were like, oh, because we don't think it would get made. And he's like, if you believe in it, you should make that. No one else is ever going to make that movie. And like,
it's very true.
And it was like it was a good kick in the ass.
Yeah. So yeah, that was Lawrence Ingley, one of the producers on that film, was the one who kind of like
to Miranda.
Yeah, he kind of like pressed the button to turn that part of our brain on and say, go do it. Why not? Yeah.
But I have to ask, like, you guys did some pitches, right? So what were some reactions from the pitches? Like, I gotta believe that somebody's like, I could just see the pale white skin of somebody, like just all the blood coming out of their bodies. Like, you guys are, you're not serious, are you? This is a joke.
We're pretty good at pitching our ideas because we're also like self-deprecating and like totally ready for the criticism, to a certain degree, and like and sort of have the attitude of like, if you don't get it, it's not for you. Please don't please don't give us money. Like, I don't want you.
What a great pitch.
Regretting this, or, just every draft and every screening, like not getting it. But it was hard. Yeah. And it took like someone with a weird sense of humor, like Miranda, like, to say yes, that got the ball rolling. And then, I will say something we discovered later that really helped was, we got the band Manchester Orchestra, Robert and Andy, to start making some songs for us when we were developing it, before it was even officially greenlit. And then we started pitching it with music, and we were able to pitch the opening scene and press play and just start describing it as you heard this like gorgeous music.
Nice.
And it was such a different feeling in the room, where like people were suddenly like, what the hell's going on? This music is making me emotional, and it's so beautiful. And what you're describing is profane and stupid, and I should not give you money.
Right.
But I think that really helped crack the pitch in that case, just to be able to like, play music, which is something we still do sometimes. But.
Yeah. The other two things that really helped us was the fact that, two things happened while we were in the middle of trying to get funding and trying to get actors. The first thing that happened was we somehow got into the Sundance Institute, like the Sundance Screenwriters Lab, for this screenplay. And we were like, what are, like, who at the Sundance, like,
Right.
You think about Sundance, you think about so many other movies, and not Swiss Army Man. That's not what you think about when you think about Sundance. But, to their credit, they saw something really earnest in our work, and they saw our past work and saw that we were trying new things. And, what is Sundance if not a place to foster new voices? And so they brought us in, and it was incredibly creatively just exactly what we needed at that point in our careers, regardless of whether or not the movie was going to get made. It was so healing, and it also showed us that there was a place for us in this industry, in the way that we were talking about at the beginning, where we were talking about maybe we don't belong here. It's like, oh, the Sundance Institute was one of the first places that we went to. We're like, oh, this beautiful, creative environment can exist, and it does exist, and we should be chasing after this. And so that was really great. But we got the stamp of approval from Sundance, which made suddenly our Farting Corpse movie, people had to like really lean forward and process. And then
they'd be like, Robert Redford said this, so this is a good movie.
Exactly, yeah. Robert Redford's stamp of approval. And then oddly enough, while we were at the Sundance Labs, we were so fed up with how intellectual we had become. We had been talking way too much about themes and characters and all this stuff that is really important. But after a while, as filmmakers who want to be on set, who want to be making things and really expressing things that you can't even put into words, it was very frustrating. And we happened to get a song in from Columbia Records from one of our commissioner buddies, Brian Younts, who works at Columbia. He sent it over, and it was turned down for what? And he was like, what do you guys want to do with the song? It's kind of a wild song. And so we were like, this is perfect. Let's turn off our brains and let's do the opposite of what we'd be doing. No theme, no character, no, just like pure id. Let's create something so wild and so frenetic and beautiful and strange. And then basically we'll hold nothing back. And we'll say to the label, like, I dare you to let us make this. And if they actually let us make it, then we'll have to go make it. And so we did that. We put that online, instantly a viral hit. And so we got the viral hit, we got the Sundance stamp of approval, and suddenly making the Farting Corpse movie made a lot of sense to, certain investors. Obviously, we still scared away a lot of people, but we were really lucky.
No, it was a right place, right time, right product. And also the thing is, and a lot of people might not see this in your films, but there's so much emotion in the characters. There's like, in everything everywhere. You're tearing up. It's they're hot dog fingers, but there's so much emotion behind what's going on. Same thing with Swiss Army Man. Like, you'll tear up watching that film. So it's not just insanity for insanity or gag for gag's sake. There's heart behind it, and that's what makes you, because I can't say anybody can come up with the farting corpse idea, but in the wrong hands, it's a movie about a farting corpse.
Totally.
But
yeah,
And what you guys did, you elevated it. And that's because what Sundance saw in your work, you're like, oh, there's more here than just the gag. The gag is just super interesting. And no one's ever seen this before. And that's what's really beautiful about what you guys are doing. Now, I have to ask.
Thank you.
Now, you guys, we all, as directors, we're all on set. And there's always that one day on set, if not every day, but always that one day specifically, the entire world is coming crashing down around you. The world is coming to an end. You're not going to make your day. You're going to lose the actor. The sun is gone. The camera fell in the lake. What was that day for you on Swiss Army Man, and how did you overcome it?
We probably have different answers for this, but you go first. Yeah.
We shot Swiss Army Man in like 5 weeks, and we had a bunch of travel days in there too. So it wasn't even like 5 days of shooting per week. Week 4, we did 4 night shoots in a row, and it was like all the bear stuff and like, we just burned the candle at both ends and started going insane. And I thought
everyone was getting sick.
Yeah, I thought I was at rock bottom at that point, and then I got sick after that, as we traveled up to Eureka with a small crew to get all the beautiful redwood stuff. And so like on day 1 or 2 of wandering around the redwoods, that morning, Kwan like wanted to rewrite the scene again. We were constantly rewriting while shooting on that one, which is not a good idea. And he was like, we don't have time to rewrite it. Oh, well, but it's a bad scene. Let's go shoot it. And I was sick and sad and demoralized. And that was how we started our day. And then we went out into the woods, and while shooting it, I just started feeling like I was going to pass out, hopeless. And it was kind of a boring scene where we're just doing normal coverage, and I was like, the movie's going to be a disaster. It's not going to work. That's not going to work. Dan hates it. I don't even know how to give notes on this scene. And I like walked away and walked up to my producer, Jonathan Wong. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And he's like, what's up? Apparently I said something where he interpreted it as like, Daniel thinks he's going to die. But I thought what I was saying was that I couldn't finish the movie, but I'm not sure if I was speaking English. You were gone. Yeah, I was like close to a mental breakdown. And that scene turned out great. It's great. The writing was fine. Like in the edit, our Matt Hannum edited it together, and we watched it and we're like, what the fuck? It's good. That day was so sad. I guess I don't have to direct. I guess the key to directing is to walk away and get sad. And then it'll turn out good. But yeah, we learned a lot of lessons on that movie about how to manage morale. And that's a huge deal on a feature, that like, it's not just about, do you have a good idea and a good plan? It's about like, are you taking care of yourself?
Are you taking care of your crew?
Are you taking care of your crew? And we left that one being like, woo, a lot of room for improvement, like it got too hard.
My quick story is, the last scene of the movie is everyone on the beach. I'm sorry, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it.
There's a beach.
Everyone's on the beach.
There's some beans.
Yeah, exactly. And then we, a small budget, no lighting equipment, nothing. We had to wait for, the 15-20 minutes of magic hour to shoot that entire scene. And it was Radcliffe's birthday, I remember, and Radcliffe really wanted to lie down in the water, even though it was freezing cold. Like, we were like, Daniel, we have a dummy, and he's like, no, I want to be here. I think it's important for Paul to see me here, to be part of this. And we're like, okay, great. And so we neurotically blocked it all out and tried to like come up with a plan to shoot that whole scene, which is like 12, 13, it feels like 12 setups, right? It's like everyone has their own Spielberg push-in on like in the medium shot, plus 3 or 4 wides, plus like a couple of very specific shots between Radcliffe and Paul. Anyways, it was a lot of shots, and we had to do it in 15 minutes. Right. And so we just
an hour. I think we have an hour.
No, I feel like by the time we started shooting, it was like half an hour, and we basically just didn't cut. We made the plan, and Larkin was operating for the whole movie, our DP, and so he knew exactly like when where to move from each setup. And so we'd be like, okay, we got it, next setup. Okay, we got it, next setup. okay, we got next up. Okay, now everyone, all the actors get ready. You're going to shoot your one shot and we're just going to do a couple takes back and forth and we'll move on to the next person. And like I said, I don't know how many times we cut, but we really did, like, there was no time to slate, we just went like, okay, now you're close up. Okay, now you're close up. Now you're close up. And then we missed the last final interaction between Paul and Daniel. As the sun was setting, we cranked our ISO was cranked wide, like as high as possible.
Real bad, and Larkin was just muttering, "We have to stop."
Yeah, it was so grainy, and we're like, shit. I think we might have lost. I don't know if we got our finale, and it was just like a really just scary feeling to have, just to be like, we didn't nail the ending. And we like Scheinert was saying, we were kind of already like burnt out from the process of making this film, so that was definitely like that
was week 2.
That was
of 5. That was the end of week 2.
So that was really scary, and we ultimately finagled some
or was it week 1? Because maybe on Friday I sort of remember the schedule in my head, but it was fast. I remember us being like, oh my god, we just started and now we're shooting the ending.
And we're exhausted.
And like,
I guess it's a short film.
So we're just learning a lot of the limits of our of our budget versus our ambition.
But I will say, like, I hear stories of film sets gone wrong, and it makes me feel so lucky that like it's been hard and things have gone wrong, but just because it was ambitious, not because of like, we've been so lucky that we haven't worked with assholes, and that like we've had good producers, and that we've headed off a lot of the really disastrous types of things that can go wrong before we got to set. And so we're such lucky filmmakers that
that these are our horror stories.
These are our horror stories. It's just like, I was tired and it was hard.
It's not like Coppola and Apocalypse Now. You're not in the jungle for 3 years with a gun to your head. So it's not
exactly.
Putting things into perspective.
Yes, exactly.
I feel both of those. I love the best directing tip. Just walk away depressed and it'll come out fine.
Weird. I mean, we did kind of think Swiss Army Man, there was a masochistic part of us that were like, it's about a guy kind of losing his mind in the woods. I think that might happen to us while we do this, but maybe that'll make it an interesting movie. This will be our Apocalypse Now.
I was about to say, this is very Apocalypse Now of you guys. Exactly. Very, very method directing. It's very.
I don't aspire to do for that.
Now
I like having fun.
So speaking of fun, I had the pleasure of watching Everything Everywhere All at Once. A week ago, I think at this point, a week and a half ago, I saw it. And as I'm sitting there watching it in the theater, I'm just looking at it and going, I'm so glad this is in existence. I'm so glad somebody put this out into our world, our universe. And then Hot Dog Fingers show up. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this film. There's Hot Dog Fingers. I have to ask, man, how it's such a beautiful, and I joke, but it's such a beautifully done movie, and I'm not smoking your butt again, but
we're gonna make that a thing, aren't we?
Oh no, I promise you there'll be some YouTube comments
saying now
smoking a butt. No, but in all honesty though, I'm watching it and it's Michelle Yeoh is a goddess. Data from the Goonies. Oh my God, what a powerhouse actor. I was not, when I saw him, I was like, oh, look, it's Data from Goonies. Oh, he got work. Fantastic. That's what I first thought. And then I'm like, holy crap, he's really good.
Yeah. And don't underestimate Data.
No, dude, like, when I heard his voice for the first time, I'm like, oh, it's Data. He's grown. Like, because I've seen the Goonie 1,000 times.
Of course. Yeah.
And then Jamie Lee Curtis and then just the whole cast of you put together. It is such a beautiful ballet of insanity, and emotion. It's remarkable and I have to ask you the same question again. How in God's green earth did you guys come up with this idea?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could do a whole podcast one day about where ideas come from and how it's a mystery and what is the human brain and how does neuroscience work and what is the synthesis of the neurons firing that make us giggle, and then at what point do we then test that against the culture to see if it's something worth putting out there as opposed to just an inside joke, and like, how much of that is like intent and how much of that is pure luck or just like subconscious, ness.
Right.
And I think
like we're all discovering that genius doesn't come from an individual. Ideas don't really come from individuals. We're all just conduits for this like bigger mimetic battle that's happening all around us.
We're going to get philosophical with your very simple question.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. No, I love it. So you're channeling. We're channeling.
We're channeling
from the ether. From the ether.
It's all from the ether. And I think the only thing that makes us different, and I think the thing that is our superpower, is we say yes.
We say yes to the ideas that we haven't seen that sound unproducible.
Yeah, we say yes to the bad ideas. We say yes to the things that should not be made, mostly because the moment we tell ourselves, oh, this shouldn't be made, we question that impulse. Like, why not? Hold on.
But did it resonate with me?
This is interesting. Yeah.
Oh, if it sounds unproducible, that means no one else is going to beat us to it.
There's also that.
There's no competition. There's no competition.
Exactly. Yeah.
There is like I was just thinking about the philosophy of ideas, and there's this book Impro by Keith Johnstone. It's like an improv book that I read in acting school, and he has a chapter about creativity and about how effortless it is for the human mind, but it's hard for a lot of people because it's trained out of us. Like our school system and our culture teaches us how to curate and focus and ignore, playful ideas, but that like it's like if you don't do that, like if you talk to like hunter-gatherer cultures and stuff, like it's creativity is like effortless and it's everywhere, and that there's some anecdote about some like it's like an Inuit tribe or something that like one of those tribes that has 20 words for snow, and they think that there is a sculpture inside of every rock that has to be discovered, not that there's a sculptor who's really good at it. It's like, and they're like, so instead of being like Dan Kwan is a really good sculptor, the way that the tribe talks about it apparently is they're like, there's a lot of weird rocks around lately. Like, what's with all the rocks have some really interesting animals inside lately. And that I always thought it was such a beautiful counterpoint to how we normally talk about, creativity.
What we're saying is,
and not to spoil anything, but there might be a rock or two in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty weird rocks.
Yeah,
they're pretty weird rocks.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like to sum it up, I feel like every idea we had in this movie, a 10-year-old could have come up with, it's all hot dog hands and talking rocks. It's like there's nothing special about any of this stuff. It's just the fact that we chased it, and I think we were like, there's a sort of naivety there where we like foolishly chase after these things.
Or our real skill isn't coming up with weird ideas. It's convincing people to invest millions of dollars and to risk their entire artistic reputation.
That's absolutely
out those weird ideas.
Yeah.
You guys should do a master class on how to convince people to give you money to do insane ideas, because you guys are the masters at this, because not once but twice with two, like, again, the pitch, how do you pitch this? Like, it's such a visual thing. And how do you attract the cast that you do? Like, it's that's the other thing. It's not like you guys are going off and doing it with some unknown actors. You're bringing some of the top actors around to do this. Like Michelle Yeoh, how she has not been a lead in a movie outside of Hong Kong is beyond me. Like when I heard that, I was like,
really? I know. We felt the same way. We were like, what?
Yeah, we did not know that until the press tour.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? She's a goddess. She's amazing what she does, and how she played this part was so beautifully. I mean, it's so beautifully directed, and everything. It's just I'm going back as I'm talking to you. The images are flying back into my head. Hot dog fingers. I still have nightmares, by the way, about the hot dog fingers. When I first saw them, I was just like, why has no one ever done this before? And I go, I know why. It's disturbing as hell.
It's funny.
It is, but in a wonderful, beautiful way. It's like, oh my.
But
is that Jimmy Lee Curtis? Is that
I know, right?
With hot dog fingers?
But to our earlier point, like you say, how come no one has done this before? Ever since our movie has come out, it's only been about a month now, but people have been sharing past work that feel like somehow we ripped it off or whatever that we've never seen before. So like there's been 2 or 3 different instances where people have sent us hot dog finger scenes from other movies that we've never seen. Or like, you know, there was a children's book. My friend sent me a children's book where there were just 2 talking rocks on a hill. And I was like, this is amazing. You know, like it's all there. It's all in the ether. It's how you cook it. You know, it's how you make the stew. That's what
no pun intended. No pun intended with the hot dogs. No, look, I mean, it's not that we haven't seen that before. I can't remember seeing it, but like you see like a movie like I forgot, one of the Spy Kids had guys made of thumbs, you know, and like giant, you know, like it's not that. But the way you guys did the fingers and the way the movement and stuff was just so, and I don't want to make this a podcast about the hot dog fingers, but it's just just an amazing visual. How did you guys do the quality of visual effects on such a low budget? Because this is not $100 million Avengers. Well, $100 million is a catering budget for Avengers. But how did you guys do such amazing? Because the visual effects are remarkable. They really are.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we, you know, coming up in music videos, we did a lot of our own effects at first. And then, like I said, we learned
But that was kind of our calling card. Like labels would reach out to us, be like, hey, do you have any cool visual effect ideas that are cheap?
Right. Oh, you're those guys who can do like tons of effects for no money because you just do them yourself. And that was our thing. And then we learned a lot about practical effects, mostly by working with Jason Kizvarde, our production designer, and kind of brought all those tricks to this movie. And so a lot of it's like not that fancy, you know, and while writing, we would write gags that we knew could play to our strengths. So we were very rarely writing things that were going to require like a huge VFX team to strategize and bring on 3D generalists to design this, to figure that out, you know. And instead we were like, oh, no, it's all going to be practical. And when it's not, we know which tricks we're going to use and they're not too hard to pull off.
We're using a lot of the same techniques that, you know, the filmmakers in the 80s were using. It's the only difference is in the 80s
or the 20s
or even 20. A trip to the moon, like just like the match cuts with the poof of smoke. Like we're just using those same exact techniques, except the difference now is we don't have to do 20 takes to get the practical effect right. We can do 1.5 good takes, okay takes, and then we fix it in post with our very rudimentary skills as After Effects artists. And so we're kind of cheating every way we can to make the illusion of these effects work for as little effort and as little money as possible, which is why I think, you know, people say, like, people have been talking about the fact that we had about like 500 to 600 visual effects shots and it was done with a team of like 5 to 7 people. We say 7 because we're also including ourselves in that number.
And there were a couple people who came on for a few weeks, but the like core team was pretty small, like a really small.
The core team was
of
like
our
3
friends,
or 4 people.
And we all just like had synced hard drives and we would just like, we did it all in After Effects. And I think some of it's very impressive what the guys pulled off, you know, and some of it was very ambitious, like the kind of bagel stuff.
The bagel stuff, yeah.
But then the other kind of secret weapon is that Kwan has great aesthetic taste, and with a small team and it all being in After Effects, it was possible for like Dan to push certain shots over the finish line. And instead of giving like 20 emails to try to refine it, he could just be like, great, give me the project file, open it up. I'm going to spend an hour or 2. That's exactly how I want it to feel. We're done. But like, we didn't have to do all the effects, but we also got to put our fingerprints on it.
There's an efficiency there. There's an efficiency there.
So nice.
Because I think one of the reasons why so many visual effects in movies look the same is because there's so many layers of communication between the director and the visual effects artist now that you kind of, as a director, you go into these post houses and you're not really allowed to play that much. You're not allowed to explore. And that's really frustrating as directors who love visual effects. And so this was a way for us to be able to have our cake and eat it. We can do it for less money and we get to have our fingerprints all over it and really play with the style of how it's going to feel.
But people who are great at visual effects, would listen to your comment about our effects looking incredible, and they would be like, no, they don't.
Yeah,
Because like a lot of it's like real
janky,
but we think there's like a charm to it, and it's about energy, not about like pause the frame, that's a perfect shot, kind of aesthetic.
No, I've been a VFX supervisor on a lot of indie projects, so I mean I understand you're janky, but it's perfect for what you're trying to do. It's not. It doesn't have to be Thanos throwing a moon at somebody. Like that's not what that's about. And that's why I'm like, even on that budget level, it still looks phenomenal. And you're so caught up with the kinetic energy of the scenes. I mean, the bagel stuff and all. I mean, you just get caught up with it. You're just like, you're in. Wow. Because if I'm looking at, that comp was just, they just should have blurred that a little bit more. If they could have just comped that a little bit better or thrown some, no, I wasn't there. I was in the story. So with that, I'm sure if I go back and analyze it, I'm sure you guys go back and analyze it like, dude, I do that on $200 million movies. I'm like, how did that get through? Like, obviously, see, that's a really bad. When my wife is looking at a movie and going, that's a bad green screen, and it's like a $200 million movie, I'm like, they really screwed up. They've screwed up if she figured it out. So I have a few more. I have last couple questions to ask all my guests. What advice would you give a filmmaker trying to break into the business today?
Adjust your goals, bro. Breaking in shouldn't be your goal, because a lot of people break in and then they're sad and they make the world a worse place and they make like upsetting weird content, and they
Are you talking about us?
Talking about us,
right?
Look what happens when you follow your dreams, everybody. Look.
Yeah, it turns out I'm cynical. This was all a front. All these nice jokes. Fuck kids. No.
That's amazing.
No, I like to say that like if you love making movies, chase that feeling, find people that you love making movies with, and maybe you'll end up getting paid to do it, and find a niche in there, and that'll be great. Or maybe not, and you'll still be happy and having the therapeutic, beautiful experience of making and sharing artwork, that breaking in can sometimes be the worst thing for you, if you don't get to make what you love or with people that you love doing it with. And so it'll happen if you just make stuff you love. You'll find your niche in the world, and that niche might mean your local film festival. And that's dope. Awesome. Or it might be A24, and that's cool too.
and that's fine too. And let's just give a shout out to A24. Thank you for allowing and helping movies like this get put out into the world, because there just really isn't. There isn't another A24. There is.
They're fighting the good fight, tricking people into watching provocative, challenging things.
Right.
Great. It's
fantastic. Now, what is the lesson that took you guys the longest to learn, whether in the film industry or in life?
Something I'm trying to figure out is this balance of it's more than work life, because I think work life is like that's a given. Everyone has to tackle that. But it's like from a leadership position, because again, I never wanted to be a filmmaker, I never wanted to be a director, I never wanted to be a leader, and so a lot of this feels like it's been put upon me in a way that like makes me very uncomfortable and I'm unsure of. But the balance of being a leader who is also who's just as concerned with the final product as the process is something I think I'll always be learning and always reflecting on. I think with this movie, we got really close to a perfect process. In the fact that like it's the most ambitious thing we've ever done. It's like foolishly ambitious for how much money and time we got for to make it, and yet it was the most fun, the most loving, the most just gracious environment. And I really think it was like it was so much easier than Swiss Army Man, even though technically it's like exponentially harder in every way as far as production goes. But because we went in with the goal of creating a an environment that was just really fulfilling and all pushed towards this idea of letting everyone who walked onto our set be able to show off their best version of themselves. That was like one of our goals, was to empower people to just become the best version of themselves on our set. And it was so fulfilling and so fun, and I have so many great memories of the shoot in a way that I can't say the same for our previous work. And I think this is something I think we'll always be chasing after, because if we can have it all, if we can be ambitious and creative directors who also just build beautiful environments for people to exist in and to create in, like that is going to be such a beautiful thing to prove to our industry, to myself and to our crew, but also to the rest of the industry.
That's a beautiful answer, by the way. That's a beautiful answer. That was a really wonderful answer. And last question, 3 of your favorite films of all time.
Oh, this is always hard. So hard.
I like giving different answers,
Okay, you go first. Or you say one, I'll say one. We'll go back and forth.
I love a crazy documentary. Love American Movie, the movie about the Midwestern boys trying to make their movie. Not available for rent digitally anywhere for some reason.
Really?
Got to figure this out. But
oh my God.
The first thing that my brain went to was Magnolia, probably. Like that's one I just keep returning back to, because it's a movie that does everything wrong, and it feels so right, and it doesn't matter, and I'm like, I wanted to be chasing that as a filmmaker for a long time, just that feeling that I got when I watched Magnolia for the first time.
My brain just went to like Moonlight is insane. It's just like the hype. It pays off. It's great. It's just so beautiful. And like, it was like at the right place at the right time, where like our culture was trying to like quit being so homophobic. And like, it was like, here's how, like, here, like, empathize with this person. Like, and it's just 100% successful. And it was like, just like this, like epically important thing for our culture and for me, to just like, to fall in love with this love story and for it to break my heart. Yeah, it's insane.
And for it to win Best Picture.
Yeah, and then for it to go win Best Picture and be like, indie film's alive.
Yeah. I'll go back to one of my childhood favorites, which was it's probably the movie I've seen more times than any other movie. It's Groundhog's Day.
That's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece, and it became like a spiritual guide for this movie, because it was a film about nihilism, about the drudgery of existence, but wrapped up in a really fun comedy. And the movie pulls off both those things wonderfully. And I was like, I want to do that with our movie. Whatever we do with this film, it has to pull off both those things. It has to be so much fun and so philosophical and sincere. And so, yeah, Groundhog Day. Long answers only.
Princess Mononoke.
Oh,
I love that movie.
Yeah, just blew my mind when I was a kid, and then I've been thinking about it lately, and just how like brilliant like the ambiguity of good and evil is in that, and how important it was for me as a kid to chew on that, when like we're usually fed these kind of like violence is the answer, beat the bad guy stories, like just go blow up their building, is the moral of a lot of action adventure movies, and it's like, no, this one's confusing, and it's about people with different interests, and also you're going to fall in love with a little wolf girl slash want to become her. No, it's very confusing and exciting for me as a kid.
For my last answer, I don't want to say this because it's so obvious, but I have to say it just because I need to pay tribute to how much the movie means to me. Eternal Sunshine
of the Spotless Mind. Oh my God, I love that movie.
Ever heard of it?
Never heard of it. Who's in it? No, I'm joking. No, Gondry is a master. I wish he would be making more movies now. I want him. Somebody please listen and give him a budget. Let him do whatever he wants.
Pair him back up with Charlie. He when he does whatever he wants, he spirals a little. Like I think I would if I didn't have Dan.
It's good to have a balance. But Eternal Sunshine is just it's the movie that that really, I feel like it changed me as a person and made me understand my world, my place in the world in a completely different way. I think it was the first time I experienced metamodernism in the wild, or this idea of trying to get beyond postmodernism, like postmodernism. And it was so cathartic and healing for me to see that play out in a story for the first time. So it's incredible. And also it's just so much fun. Like the filmmaking of it is just so much fun. And obviously we stole so much from Gondry when we started making music videos, and even in our features, you can see his fingerprints in it as well. It's all there. Yeah.
Guys, it has been an absolute pleasure and honor talking to you guys. It's so much fun. Continued success. I tell everybody to please go watch Everything Everywhere All at Once. It is a brilliant piece of cinema, and I'm so glad it exists in the world. Thank you guys for doing you. Thank you for being a conduit for the insane and bring it into our universe, my friends. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. This was fun.
Yeah.